and see what we do. There we go. That's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to roll, everybody. Well, hello. Welcome. Come on in, everybody. Come on in. We're just having a conversation with everybody and saying howdy to you. And now we're officially live in all of our formats. Yeah. So, yeah, we were just informed right before we went on air, there was a small plane crash in Philadelphia. Good grief. And, we have, unfortunately, some people have lost their lives because of, look, here's the deal. I used to work a long time in aviation, and I get it. People are like, they're panicky and kind of conspiracy theories. Guys, there's no conspiracy theory. Accidents happen. This is what happened. I mean, when you're in a plane, you're going pretty quickly. And so accidents do occur. This is why they have investigators, and they try to make it as safe as possible. But I mean, when you're flying at pretty fast speeds, accidents can happen. Mechanical issues. So these things occur, and so we certainly pray for those. From my understanding, there were casualties, so we pray for them and the families. It's terrible. Yeah. So and of course that American Airlines collision with the helicopter, it really irritated me. But I'll talk about that in just a second. But first of all, welcome to the presentation. Thanks, guys, for being here. So happy Friday to you wherever you are in this world. So I'm Bishop James Long, and welcome to the Sacred Division. Now, if you would like to do us a favor, and please visit our sponsor's website. That's KGRAD, D as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. KGRADB.com. And make sure you subscribe there. It's a really great site. I love the site, and it's already inexpensive as it is to subscribe. But please subscribe there. But put Bishop as your promo code, because you're going to get 30% off your subscription. So why not? I mean, that's only makes sense if you save money. Now, if you want to go to my website, simple, BishopJamesLong, LONG.com. BishopJamesLong, LONG.com. And there you go. That's my site. By the way, I do have 4 online classes that you can take, and they're absolutely free. Just giving them away. And all you got to do is just go to BishopJamesLong.com, click on the class link. It's all online. You learn at your own pace. You even get certificates. So I even pay for all that. So, just enjoy it. That's education is important. Gotta share the education. So, and of course, if you want to go to the church's website, that's simple too, usocc.org. And we want to remind people that tonight, of course, we have night prayer. And if you want to join us for night prayer, we would love to have you guys. We're going to air it. It won't be on KGRADB radio, but it will air on all of my social media platforms. Now, by the way, if you ever want to know the schedule of the shows, it's real simple. All you got to do is go to my website, BishopJamesLong.com, scroll all the way down, and I put a show schedule there. So you can see every day what we're doing, where we are, what social media platform we're using. You just click the social media platform, it takes you right there too. So we just try to make it as easy as possible for you, because we don't know what's going to happen with TikTok. And we want to make sure you guys have from information that or wherever that you're watching it. That there's plenty of other places where you can watch the presentations. So so Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have night prayer. It's open to everybody. You don't need anything. It's all provided for you online. Sundays and Wednesdays, we have Bible study at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then, of course, Friday is our paranormal show, what we're doing tonight. And then Saturday, that's when we have open mic, or we just chill. You guys get to talk to the moderators, just strictly on TikTok. So it's a great time. Let me just I can't turn my microphone up because unfortunately this is this microphone here. I can't. There's no way to turn it up. So yeah, just let me know if you guys can hear it pretty loudly on TikTok. But that's unless I put it up closer to my jacket, I can. So can you guys hear pretty well? Just let me know. And okay, all right, great, fantastic. Well, thanks, guys, on TikTok. All right, excellent. So look, here's the deal. Let me just say this about there's another plane crash. We talked about that. Here's the deal. These conspiracy theories, especially about terrible tragedies, really getting on my nerves. They're really irritating me. It is so disrespectful. I mean, no sooner than the American airline crashed yesterday with a collision with a helicopter, people within 10, 15 minutes ran on social media and spreading these ridiculous conspiracy theories. Look, people lost their lives. This is not a time to create idiotic conspiracy theories because you want clickbait so you can make a buck off of it. That's an abomination. It was a terrible, terrible accident. Human error occurs. I used to work in aviation, so I know about aviation. I'm not an expert on it, but I'm pretty knowledgeable on the topic. I did work there for 5 years. So we just got to stop this ridiculous conspiracy. Every time something happens is a conspiracy theory. And I just think it's appalling that people would take a terrible tragedy and take that as an opportunity so that people can click, make videos. So it's a clickbait. So people can watch it and make a buck off people losing their lives. It's terrible. It is terrible. And I'm sure, I guarantee you, I'll bet my right arm that people are already on social media right now making ridiculous conspiracy theory videos on this tragedy because a small plane crashed. Planes crash. This is what happens. Accidents happen. Now, thank God it's not as often as a car accident. But it occurs. There's mechanical issues. They occur. The human error occurs. So do me a favor. For those who lost their lives yesterday or Wednesday, and for those who lost their lives Friday today for this plane, if you see anybody making videos, conspiracy theories, don't watch it, because if you watch it, they're going to make money off of this. Protest it. Just scroll on. That's an abomination. It's just disgusting. It's disturbing. I don't understand. But so anyway, please do that. We would appreciate that. And I'm sure the families would too. Today is going to be a very interesting conversation. Now, I will leave TikTok chat on, but I'm already seeing some things. So if we have to put sub chat only on, I will. I would prefer not to, because people can't subscribe now. That's because of TikTok. There's no way to subscribe. So I'd rather leave the chat on for everybody. We're not politics, just be nice. Our guest tonight is a really, really interesting gentleman. I spoke to him the other day, and I'm looking forward to having this I know. There was an accident. I just said it. A plane accident occurred. We know. It just happened. We know. Okay. So, our special guest, Dan Carlson. He is a semi-retired meteorologist and the senior pastor at Christian Life Center Church in Belfourche, South Dakota. He's had a lifelong interest in UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, that started with 2 sightings he had as a young boy. Now, he started with his broadcasting career with CBS affiliate WCCO in Minneapolis, where he grew up as the youngest major market TV weather presenter in the nation. And from there, he went on to become a director of the news and programming for 2 Christian radio stations in the Twin Cities before marrying the love of his life, Karen, and moving to the Black Hills of South Dakota, where he was chief meteorologist for KEVN TV, the Fox affiliate in Rapid City. Now, in 2004, Dan was recruited by Cabela's. It's a leading outdoor retailer, where he first served as a writer before becoming the company's corporate meteorologist and producing a daily internal newsletter sent to all Cabela's locations in the USA and Canada. Now, his publication covered weather, economic trends, emerging technologies, the outdoor industry, cyber threats, and company news. And during that time, Dan and Karen bought a farm near Sidney, Burton, Nebraska, where they raised chickens, goats, and 2 children. Anyway, Dan left Cabela in 2018, worked as a substitute science teacher for kindergartens K-8, became a part-time pastor, and wrote 2 best-selling science fiction thriller novels, Species Unknown and Species Unleashed, which contain content that overlaps with UAP studies, such as interdimensional travel, cryptids, Native American lore, and advanced aerospace technologies. Interesting. And he has since moved back to the Black Hills, renewed his interest in UAPs. And while interested in all aspects of UAP and cryptids, Dan is especially adept at exploring and asking questions about potential moral, philosophical, and religious ramifications of human interactions with UAPs. Now, by the way, in addition to being a pastor, Dan has a side gig as a freelance writer. He's an avid outdoorsman and is fascinated in military history, especially World War II to present. So we really appreciate him taking the time and chatting with us today. And I want to introduce to you Dan Carlson. Well, hello there, Dan Carlson. How are you?
Bishop Long, what a pleasure. What a pleasure. You were giving that introduction. I'm like, who is that guy? Oh, yeah. It's wonderful to be with you.
You certainly have a resume, no question about that. Of all the careers, as far as the places, what you did, is there one particular career or genre, if you will, that you really, really are, obviously meteorology, but they are passionate about? Let's get there before we get to the UAPs.
You know, it's Bishop Long, being yourself in ministry, I think that there is nothing that compares when a lost soul finds salvation in Jesus Christ. That is what is absolutely I'm passionate about, is to help people find that path to God. But as far as the other careers go, the one that people just will not let me escape from is the meteorology. Wherever I go, it's Dan the weatherman around the Black Hills, and people want to know what the weather forecast is going to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting how people. We talked the other day about about the weather and especially the climate change, or if you actually believe in this. And it was interesting because you kind of schooled me on the difference between that. So because again, I am a novice when it comes to this. So let me just ask you, before we get into the UAPs and the really interesting the book itself, the books actually, is there do you believe in this global warming, or do you think it's or what do you think?
I think that it cannot be disputed that the Earth is warming, and that it has warmed in the past. It has cooled down in the past. It has been much warmer than it is now in the past. It has been much colder than it is now in the past. It is just a part of the Earth cycle. The big fight is over what they call anthropogenic climate change, and that is the role that humans have in it. And I think that sometimes it's just so simplified when people say, well, the Earth is warming, but the Earth covers a lot of real estate. And that real estate is divided into regions and into sectors. And it's almost a misnomer to say that, well, this is what's causing this. Well, something might be causing that in one location, whereas another location, it might be totally non-relevant, not relevant at all. And the idea that one person can, by not getting a plastic bag is going to alter the course of the climate is ludicrous. What's interesting, Bishop Long, is several years ago, the American Meteorological Society did a blind survey of its meteorologists. This was back, I think, around the time that Mr. Gore had his book and his speaking tour.
Yep.
And the question was asked, do you think that humans cause global warming? And as long as they could remain anonymous, the meteorologists who answered that question split pretty much down the middle. It was like 49 to 51. But if you came out and didn't toe the line on the narrative on the air, well, you could get kicked off. You'd be, what do they call it, canceled, as it were. There's tremendous pressure to cave in. As far as, we talk, the sea levels are going to rise. There's going to be all this catastrophic. Bishop Long, you and I know that when the sea levels rise, they're not going to go from the levels they are now to 200 feet higher in a week. It's going to be a very gradual increase.
Mm-hmm.
There will be plenty of time for places to prepare. And I tell people, of course, I'm an outdoorsman. I care about the environment. I think that God gave us a mandate in Genesis to take care of his creation and be responsible with the resources that he's given to us. Don't be stupid. But at the same time, the Apostle Paul writes in Romans chapter 1, starting in verse 18, about how people will be led astray and begin to worship the created things instead of the creator. And I think that that's what we're seeing now. You have people who think that the earth is a goddess who is to be worshipped, that they refer to the planet as a she, and they go off these deep ends and they get into elemental spirits and all of that. Yeah, I tell people I am going to panic over climate change the day that no bank will issue a mortgage for any beachfront property and no insurance company will insure beachfront property. Well, when I see that happen, and I see people who are at the head of the climate change movement evacuate their homes on the coast, then I'm going to be a little concerned.
Then you start worrying. Yeah, it was interesting because I saw a picture the other day, and of course we'll get into the UAPs in just a second. But I tell you what, when I saw this picture, I thought, well, that's kind of unnerving. It was a picture that compared Pensacola, Florida, on January 23rd, 2025, on EarthCam with snow everywhere, and then in Juneau, Alaska, January 23rd, the same day, completely clear. I mean, see, that is so, but that in of itself is truly bizarre. And for those of you who want to, I can't show you guys on TikTok, but let me share this with everybody here that's looking. And so bear with me for a second. I'll see if I can show everybody what I'm talking about. It's odd, at least to me, because that doesn't make sense. But I guess from your perspective, it might. But there it is. For those on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, I can't show you guys, but it is. You clearly see snow everywhere. Pensacola, Florida, right. January 23rd. The same day, Juneau, Alaska has no snow. It's green. It's lush.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have to keep in mind, what is the climate of Juneau? People think, well, Juneau, Alaska, Arctic. Well, Juneau's an island. It's there right in the ocean. And being an island, the water is what moderates the temperatures at Juneau. So it's not uncommon for there not to be any snow in Juneau. And also, we can look at the upper level wind pattern and see right now that there's basically a ridge over the Gulf of Alaska, which is a milder air. And then it goes up into the Yukon and curves down into the southeastern U.S. And that is just the railroad for the Arctic air masses to slide out of the Yukon territory down over the Great Lakes. And that one got a little bit farther and I guess got record snowfall in Florida, the most that they've ever had. I think somewhere in the Panhandle at 10 inches of snow.
Wow.
But it's one of those things that is a weather event, but climate is not dictated by a weather event. Climate is dictated by weather over a prolonged period of time, and that was an anomaly. Now, if we start to see glaciers form in Michigan, and we start to have 6 or 7 snowstorms a year in Alabama, then we might want to start
worrying. For those of you who are just tuning in, so we're speaking to our new friend, Dan Carlson, and he wrote 2 very best-selling books called Species Unknown and Species Unleashed, which, by the way, we will be talking to him about this. And, of course, we know this is Paranormal Fridays, and they love our Paranormal Fridays because this is all about paranormal night. And so, of course, several people are saying, talk about the UAPs. All right, let's get into this. So, first of all, your book, Species Unknown, I would encourage you guys, first of all, where do you suggest they go to purchase the 2 books that you have?
They are right now available only on Amazon.com.
Okay.
And I think they're both under $10. And I do that because I'm not out to make money. I just want people to enjoy a good story.
Excellent. And they are very good books. So, guys, pick them up. So Dan Carlson, that is, of course, who we're speaking to, and Carlson. And so let's talk about, first of all, the first book. species unknown. Now, chapter 1, this is a very interesting, of course, we're talking about, it's all about the sighting. And in part, you talk about your unwillingly encountering a mysterious aerial phenomenon in the Black Hills, which is pretty fascinating. And you describe the encounter and its immediate impact on your life and career. So, and of course, it sets the stage for some other interesting, witnesses and experience. So let's talk about the sighting. What did you see in chapter 1? Can you tell everybody?
So, Species Unknown is set in the Black Hills of South Dakota. For those of you who didn't know that South Dakota had a mountain range, the Black Hills is a mountain range located on the western South Dakota border and eastern Wyoming border. It is the highest mountain range between the Rockies and Europe. So it gets up there about 7,000 feet. It is densely forested in areas. And what I have here is I tapped into some Native American lore and some of the creatures that the Native Americans, we live in an area where the Sioux are the dominant Indian tribe, and in their lore, they have these stories about these creatures. And so I said, people come to me and say, I can't decide if it's a horror novel or a sci-fi novel or a thriller novel. It's got all that in there, but it sets the stage so that you start to think, oh, this is just another Bigfoot thing. But then you realize, no, this is not Bigfoot. Right. This is something even more frightening lurking in the forest. And then I bring together 3 characters from widely diverse backgrounds. A Native American who's a recovering alcoholic, who does work with youth, but has a very unfortunate past. I bring in the world's foremost man on predator behavior, Dr. Jake Sanders. And I bring in a gal who is an up-and-coming sheriff's deputy in eastern Wyoming. And events bring these 3 people together. They find themselves interacting with a secret organization who has a mandate from who knows where. And this is where we start to begin as the story unfolds, encounter beings that come through portals, interdimensional beings. We encounter unique aircraft that can do amazing things that are mentioned there. And I get into some of the science behind the flight characteristics. So, that it's not something that is just, made up. Yep. I try to base all of the science and, technology on what was actually under research at the time. And that I wrote it in 2018, it published in 2019. And so it's been fun. I saw, a couple months ago, there was a picture in the news of an experimental submarine craft in a dock out in California. And it looks exactly like one of the aircraft that I mentioned back in 2018. Same size, shape. And look, they built my airplane.
That's pretty cool. They may have read the book. So one thing that I would like to do is, of course, on the book itself, I like to give 2 books. Is just kind of talk about the chapters and in chronological order. That way, people can kind of get a perspective of where we are. Did you experience a UFO sighting in childhood? Did you ever experience that at all?
I did. I had 2.
Okay.
The first one, I'm guessing I was about 5 years old. And we were staying as a family. Every summer we would visit some friends who had a home up in the North Minnesota woods. And so we got out of the Twin Cities, went up there in the woods, and my dad, and I was like any kid, would just, eyes light up when Dad would say, I'm going to take you fishing. And so he and our guest loaded us up in a strange vehicle that, I don't know how old you are, Bishop Long, but there used to be this conveyance called a station wagon.
I remember them. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we were in that going to a lake, and it was very early in the morning. The sun was just coming up. And I looked out the window. I was in the back seat. Of course, we didn't have car seats back then. fact, I'm not sure we even wore seatbelts. Anyway, I looked out the window and what looked like a half moon. And I would have thought, well, that's the moon, except it was moving. And it was moving in a pendulum type of a swing. It would go to the right and then to the left, just above the trees off over on the side of the road. And I said to my father, I said, Daddy, what is the moon doing over there? And he looked out the window over there and he said to his friend, what do you think? What is that? And he said, I don't know. But this was at the height of the Apollo space program. So they decided it was the government testing some moon lander or something out there in the Northwoods of Minnesota, and they didn't pay it much attention. The next sighting that I had, I was at a Bible camp located near McGregor, Minnesota. It's smack dab in the middle of the northern part of the state. And this region is pockmarked by glacial lakes surrounded by dense forest. And this particular Bible camp was located on a peninsula of land. It was called Covenant Pines, and it was between two lakes, Round Lake and Davis Lake. And I was staying, I think I was in the 4th or 5th grade, so I'm probably here 9, 10 years old. And I'm lying, and they had these A-framed cabins. The whole wall that faced the lake was all windows. So you could see out over this beautiful lake, hear the loons calling and so forth. And at night, my bunk was right next to the window, and I would lie there and I'd look up at the stars. And of course, when you get away from the city, and you could see the Milky Way, and you could see all the wonderful heavens that the Lord has made. And I'm sitting there looking at this, and all of a sudden, coming in low over the trees is a sphere. It was a bright white light. And I tell people, if you've ever seen a cartoon of a sun in a children's book, it's got the big orange disc and then these little spiky things around the edges, they're supposed to be the sun's rays. It looked something like that, but it was all white. And it came zooming across the lake and right over the cabin, but there was no sound, none whatsoever. And I thought, what was that? And then I saw it again. It came back going the other way. And at the far shore of the lake was a little bridge that you had to go over to get to the Bible camp that connected to another lake. And this thing swooped down to just above the bridge, like it was looking at the bridge. And then it zoomed off to the east at a high rate of speed. Now, I've always loved airplanes, and like you have had an interest in aviation. I used to be a private pilot, and I knew that could not have been an airplane for a number of reasons. Number one, it was too low, would have been a violation of the rules. Number two, zero sound, and just this silent, fast movement. And it was very maneuverable. It's the acceleration, the way that it could dip down and then zoom up. It was not following the standard smooth flight that you would expect with an airplane. And so that got me really interested. And I had a friend who was interested in, back then we called them UFOs back in the old days. I don't know if you remember those.
I do, certainly.
Yeah. We went to the library, and I was one of these weird nerd kids that when I was interested in something, I would go to the library. I'm going to get every book that I can on the subject. And then my parents knew I was into this. Of course, they thought, no, there's no way. But humor him, at least he's not out doing bad things. True. So they gave me a gift one day, and it was a book by J. Allen Hynek called The UFO Experience, in which he outlined his studies of the phenomenon. That was the first book I ever read on UAP. And so we, my friend and I, we began to really devote ourselves to this. And it's strange because the more we got into it, the darker things got. And that's where some spiritual things began to happen. And I know that you're well versed in this, and maybe you can offer some guidance as to what you think was going on here. But I was raised in a Christian home. I was in church every Sunday morning and Sunday night, and on Wednesday night, our life revolved around activities at the church. So I knew who Jesus was, I knew the Bible stories, and I believed. But there was just this feeling of darkness the more I got into this, and I started to look into some other areas of the occult, werewolves, vampires, alien monsters. I remember reading a story about a UFO incident about something called the Flatwoods Monster. And I got obsessed with that for a while. And then one night I was lying in my room, in my bed, and I just had this overwhelming sense of a presence that was not a good presence. And I looked over, and we had thick shag carpeting in my bedroom. And I'm going to tell you what I saw. I'll leave you for the interpretation. I saw footfalls on the carpet, as like somebody was invisible, but was walking across my room. And that's when I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I pulled myself away from that. When I was a man, having grown up a little bit and having studied the Word, gone through various Bible schools, become a Protestant minister, I feel a little bit more spiritually equipped to poke my nose back into the UAP subject. And I was listening to another podcast that airs on this particular network, and it's by Martin Willis on his UFO podcast. And he had a scientist on there, this would have been almost a year ago, who was bad-mouthing Christians and basically said that Christians lack the intellectual capacity to be listened to about anything on this subject. And so I wrote to Martin and I said, Mr. Willis, I think that this is something that is unfair. I have a science background. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I am interested in this subject, and I think I can discuss it intelligently. Well, that led to me being on his program. We had a good discussion, went almost 2 hours. And then I also found myself on the UAP Crossfire program. Commander Cobra invited me on that one. And now I'm a co-host on the UAP Crossfire. So that's kind of my journey through the UAP experience. And I'm particularly interested in the spiritual and religious ramifications of the subject of UAP.
It's an interesting topic. I mean, UAPs, because there's so much going on now with with all these sightings, of course, the drones, but we understand what the official announcement of what the drones were. But now, is my understanding that I believe in 2019, 2020, did you have any type of, there was some type of UAP drone flap in northeast Colorado and western Nebraska? Are you familiar with that?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that, because I believe you investigated that. Is that correct? Investigate might be a strong word, because I was kind of in the middle of it. I had them flying right over my farm. Oh, wow.
What happened then, it was right after everything had shut down for COVID. It was that Christmas time of 2019, and then moving into the new year. In my area, which was it's in Cheyenne County, Nebraska, which is right on the Colorado border, and people began to report strange things in the sky that they felt were drones. And I agree that yes, some were. What was intriguing is they would come out every night and they would seem to fly grid patterns or search patterns. And they would visit places like grain silos. They would seem to be like they were mapping farm fields. There were some that were flying over the nuclear facilities. Now, we have a big Air Force base right there in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It's the extreme southeast corner of Wyoming. And that air base controls a vast number of intercontinental ballistic missiles that are stationed throughout western Nebraska, northern Colorado, and in that area. In fact, my farm, 400 yards from my front door, was a Minuteman missile silo.
Wow.
I could look out my window every day and see it there. And when you live in close proximity to these things, you know that they have sophisticated sensors that immediately alert security personnel to something going on within that enclosure. And for a friend of mine shot a pheasant, and it happened to fall inside the enclosure. And within minutes, we had armored Humvees with grenade launchers and machine guns on it. It's like, oh no,
wow,
it's just a bird. But we also could see out from my front door a few miles down the road was one of the actual launch control centers. And these are larger, but this is where the gentlemen spend however many weeks it is at a time, deep underground in their shifts. And they are the guys that would actually launch the missiles that are scattered around the area. But we had these drones that were flying over. And one night I happened to see one coming, and I got my wife, I said, let's chase it. And so we got into my truck, and that we soon found ourselves off the pavement and onto these winding dirt roads, going 60, 65 miles an hour, trying to keep up with this thing. And it was responding to what we were doing. So when we would speed up, it would speed up. So it was always the same distance ahead of us, like it was playing with us.
But no, but hold on. But was this a drone? I mean, was this a drone that you clearly see, or was this what you would identify as a UAP?
I would identify it as a drone, and here's why.
Okay.
Even though they were silent and we could not hear anything, there was nothing unusual about their flight characteristics.
Okay.
They didn't do rapid acceleration. They didn't do super tight turns. They were just, it almost seemed like they were looking for something or mapping something.
Okay.
So, everyone in the area is theorizing. They're saying, okay, what are they doing? Why are we seeing them? Now, some say, well, they're mapping. Well, that's something you do in the daytime.
Daytime, yeah.
Some people say, well, maybe they're looking for natural resources, water or whatever. Again, something you do in the daytime. Why does it have to be done at night is the question. So I wrote a big, long thing on Facebook about my theory. My theory was it was a military test where they had people who were going out and doing like a little game. They would take an object of some kind and hide it out in the countryside and then unleash the drones to see if they could go and find it. Well, there was never any response to that, but the community seemed to think, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. I mean, so we started to see unmarked vans deep out in the countryside.
Wow.
Parked there. Nobody around, but easily a place that someone, could drive and take out a drone and then launch it and then go hide somewhere. So a sheriff in northern Colorado, a couple counties over, when he heard about this, he said, anyone who sees one of these vans, I want you to photograph it. I want you to send me the photos. If there's anyone there, I want you to video them. I want to know what they're doing. Of course, they didn't have license plates, so there's no way they're just unmarked vans. Well, the next morning, that same sheriff was on the media, visibly shaken, saying, what I told you to do yesterday, don't do.
What?
Stay away from these things.
So that sounds like military. Then someone must have told him, knock it off.
Yeah, that's what I theorized.
Wow.
So I think that was definitely man-made, but it was almost an identical situation to what we just saw in New Jersey.
Speaking of which, hold on 1 second. Let me jump in here real quick. Folks, for those of you just joining us, we're speaking to our friend Dan Carlson, who is the author of 2 books that you definitely need to pick up, Species Unknown. And of course, his second book is Species Unleashed. And you can purchase those at Amazon. Now, you kind of pivoted a little bit to the New Jersey. I want to present this to you and see what you think and kind of get your opinion on this. This is from TK Randall. And it writes, the White House provides new information on New Jersey drones phenomenon. So new details have emerged this week, courtesy Donald Trump's new press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. So late last year, the appearance of dozens of mysterious drones over air bases in New Jersey sparked a global phenomenon that wound up making headline news across the world. Nobody seemed to be able to explain what the drones were, including at that time, the government. We don't know what they are. Well, that's really great news. Anyway, on top of that, efforts to intercept the objects routinely ended in inexplicable failure. Now, though, during the first press briefing of Donald Trump, administration press secretary Caroline provided some new information. She says, quote, I do have news directly from the president of the United States that it was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly. An update on the New Jersey drones. She says, after research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. Okay, see, here's the problem that I have with this, Dan, and I would love to know your perspective. What irritated even a lot of people, including myself, is that the United States government had the audacity, even the Pentagon. The Pentagon did a briefing on these drones because I watched it, and, well, we really don't know what they are right now. What do you mean? You're the Pentagon. How can you not know what these things are? And everybody acted like, from the top, the highest military official, on down to everybody acted like, oh, we just really don't know what these things are. And that was certainly not giving no one peace of mind, including those people who live in the region. So I have two questions. Why on earth do you think the top Pentagon officials, military officials, acted like they had no idea what these things were when, come on. And what do you think? Do you accept President Donald Trump's administration, their statement, they were approved, it's man-made, or do you think there's some perhaps nefarious things going on here? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay. First off, I look at the formal statement that was read from the president, read by the press secretary, which said they are involved in research and other things. What other things?
Right.
You know, that leaves the door open for a whole bunch of stuff right there. She also said that they were authorized to fly by the FAA. Well, when you purchase a drone, you get in the box this form that you have to fill out and register with the FAA, and so that it's registered to you as a person. So any drone that is flown is approved by the FAA, or is supposed to be. In fact, anything that flies in the sky over a city is supposed to be registered in some way by the FAA. So this is not, I mean, what was said is true, but it certainly is lacking in the kind of detailed information. Now, I read also here just a few days ago that the government was conducting a test around Schenectady, New York, for a nuclear attack. World War III, they were talking about in prepping for World War III. Well, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, hello. Could we maybe have the Congress take time out from their debate over onesies and tell us what is going on in Schenectady and why we need to be preparing for World War III?
Well, so do you think that these were man-made in New Jersey, or do you think that there's something else? What are your thoughts?
I think they're man-made.
Okay.
I do. I can't tell you whose they are. I would strongly suspect that they are ours, in the sense that the United States government knows what they are, knows where they take off from, knows what they're doing, but they're not sharing the full story with us for whatever reasons. And look, if it's a national security thing, I understand that. We do know that there are people who dedicate their lives to keeping us safe, and if this is part of something they need to do to help do that, fine. And it'd just be nice if they would just say, look, it's a national security thing. Nothing to be worried about right now. We're just preparing, or it's training, or just something like that. And everybody would go, oh, okay, now we get it.
Right.
But, but instead now we got these people who say, well, they're They're starting to deliver a lot of stuff from from fast food to Amazon or whatever by drone in the Northeast. And so, oh, come on, we're not that naive. What puzzles me is the way that these drones responded to stimuli, in the sense of where people would shine like a laser or something at it, and then it would go dark or it would scoot away. And supposedly some helicopters, a police helicopter or something, tried to intercept one, and it took evasive action. That's interesting. That's really interesting. But again, that tells me probably something government involved.
Well, let me ask you, what theories have you personally explored regarding UAPs, or for those, I'm in my 50s, so people, Generation X and a little older, UFOs. UAP just sounds so strange. UFOs, something. So what theories have you personally explored regarding what these UAPs, UFOs, based on your investigations?
Well, I think that first of all, we need to tell ourselves that more than one thing can be true at the same time. And I think that there is more than one thing going on here. Certainly, some things that are reported as UAP are aircraft or natural phenomena that are just there. It's part of life. It's let's call it a misidentification.
Okay.
Certainly some. I guess again, I'm saying some, not all. I believe are experimental military aircraft that, we know that there are places out in the Western deserts where they test these things, and I'm glad they are, trying to keep us on the cutting edge of national defense. So good for them. Then we get into some of the others. The idea of interplanetary or intergalactic travelers traveling great distances through space to come here. That is one that I struggle with. Simply when you look at the fine-tuning of Earth and all of the things that God put in place to make this planet one that would support human life. Everything from the size, shape, and orbit of the moon, the positioning of the sun, the positioning of planets in our solar system at just the right place to deflect most of the destructive asteroids away from Earth. You have the uniqueness of water, which is a universal solvent, and we drink it and need it for life.
Sure.
You look at the tremendous compositions of the atmosphere, the gases that are there, the human body, how it's so miraculously put together in the what I call irreducible complexity. It's not my term, but I think it's certainly justified that some of these things in our own bodies and in nature are such that they could not have evolved because they have to. You can't do that. For example, sonar. So we have echolocation in, say, dolphins. How does that evolve? One day do dolphins without echolocation say, hey, Bob, we need to have sonar so that we can catch fish better. Why don't we build something in our head to make that? And then how do they get down to that level? The bombardier beetle, for instance, fascinating creature, found on 6 of the 7 continents. And it repels predators because it has 2 chambers in its abdomen that contain, in and of themselves, harmless fluid. But when those fluids mix, they create a substance that is 99.9 degrees Celsius, just below boiling, and they scald the frogs or the birds that try to eat them. So how does something like that evolve where we lost another 6 of our team today because they blew themselves up trying to get the mixture right, and then pass that down to create. So in terms of interplanetary travel and life on other planets, I don't think that the galaxy is like Star Trek, where you're running into English-speaking humanoids every week that have a new adventure in store for you. I won't argue that there's probably some kind of cellular life or organisms out there in the vastness, but to find an intelligent species that would even know where we are or have any interest in us, to travel, defying the laws of physics as we know them. And of course, I understand that physics is an evolving science, and we one day might be able to travel faster than light. But even that, with the time dilations that go on, it's not an easy thing to do. And then they come here, and for what reason? And that's why I look very carefully at the supposed messages that these beings give to humans. And I say to myself, I'm sensing wolf in sheep's clothing here, something along those lines. So long story there, but basically saying there's the interplanetary. The interdimensional, that's the one that I lean to right now. And I'll tell you why. Throughout human history, human beings have known and understood that there are beings from other dimensions that interact with humanity.
Such
Angels.
as?
Angels.
Angels, okay.
Demons. They live in a realm that is unseen to us for the most part, and yet they are capable of interacting with and influencing physical objects and so forth. The Bible says they walk among us, that we could be showing hospitality to someone, kindness to someone, unaware that they are an angel, and that we're ministering to them even as they minister to us. So you have this idea that some people have, that an announcement of beings, higher beings from another realm, is going to somehow destroy religion. No, I actually think it's going to affirm it. I think it's going to tell us that, well, maybe these cave drawings we have of these marvelous beings are these things that you can only see from the sky, the pyramids and all of that. Maybe these people were rated a little more advanced than we give them credit for.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you share an example? And for those of you just joining us, we're interviewing Dan Carlson. We having an interesting conversation, of course, and Species Unknown. That's one of the books that he is the author of. And of course, the other book is Species Unleashed. Can you share an example that's, I think, a particularly compelling piece of evidence that you have encountered, whether it be UAPs, UFOs, Bigfoot, if you believe in Bigfoot, anything that we would consider paranormal or even ufology? Have you ever seen evidence that is so compelling that you say, look, I know for a fact, based on the evidence that I've seen, that either UFOs or UAPs exist, or Bigfoot, or interdimensional beings? Can you share any type of evidence that you've seen or captured, or et cetera?
Well, as I mentioned, being an experiencer in the sense that I have seen objects in the skies that I cannot explain. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. People see things in the sky they can't explain. So are UAP real? Absolutely. I mean, these are unidentified anomalous phenomena. Okay, now let's drill down to what are they? And I think there we have to take a look at, where does evidence point to? And when you really take into consideration the complexities of interstellar travel, there's just so much that has to be unpacked there. And then to have them crashing, you'd think that, well, maybe they would have done some research as to our atmosphere or something before they got here, to have them just fall out of the sky. Then we start to look at the interactions that these beings have with people and the messages that they give to people. And some of them are absolutely terrifying encounters, where you have beings entering bedrooms or homes at night and taking people out and doing unspeakable things to them, and saying, don't be frightened, don't be frightened. Well, of course you're going to be frightened if they're doing this stuff. Do
you accept the possibility of grays, for example, existing, or do you outright reject it?
No, I think that people are having legitimate experiences. Okay. I do not discount the experiences that people say. I do, however, feel that they are demonic. Okay. I think that these are manifestations of fallen angels Because, and Bishop Long, I'm sorry, I'm not up on the theology of demonology and so forth, but I tell my congregation, Satan doesn't really care what you believe, as long as you don't believe in Jesus. And if he can get you to believe in something other than Jesus, he wins.
But why abduct? But there have been abductions where people were abducted and even taken into a spacecraft, an aircraft, a UFO. So why? I mean, if people are saying that they're being abducted and put on horrible experimentation, scientific, whatever it might be, why would a demon have the need to fly around in a UFO or a spacecraft?
Well, I think that we know that demons themselves can take various forms, and angels can take various forms as well. I find it interesting when we go back into the far history before the flood, and Scripture itself, the Bible that we have, doesn't give us a whole lot of detail, but there are some other writings like the Book of Enoch that talks about the fall of these angels and how they are the ones who came and taught humanity things like apothecary, pharmaceutical stuff, how to work metal, how to make things. And this knowledge was imparted to them by these beings who were fallen angels. Well, why would an angel know how to do that? Where did the angel get his skill in metallurgy? And so this is really a fascinating line of conversation, because then you get into things that we can't be certain of. We can only speculate to. When we see in the book of Exodus where God is giving instructions to Moses about who to appoint to construct certain items that are going to go into the tabernacle. He says, choose this person because I have put my spirit in him with the skill to do this. And you read, for instance, you can look up online recreations, replicas of the candelabra that was made that goes into the tabernacle. And then you read in Scripture where it says it is to be formed from a single piece of gold. That somebody could work and create something like that from one piece of gold. I'm not sure that there are craftsmen today that could do that. And this is where the word inspiration comes in. If you look at the etymology of the word inspiration, it means to be infused with the Spirit. And in the Middle Ages, it meant when somebody was inspired that the Spirit of God was on them that gave them the ability to do this. Today we just say, well, that's inspired, meaning that there's something extraordinary that this person has in terms of a gift or an ability that nobody else seems to have or to that degree. And so we call them inspired without really understanding the source of that word and where it comes from. But I do believe that the spiritual interacts with the physical. When we get into crashed spacecraft, this is an area where I will admit that particular theory struggles a bit, because you have these things that are there, that are physical, tangible things that we're reverse engineering or trying to reverse engineer. So then we have to ask ourselves, is this a being or a group of beings that has somehow either fallen from the state of grace or been created by fallen angels for the purpose of leading us astray? In the book of Revelation, we read about some bizarre creatures, frog-like beings coming up out of the ocean, locust-like beings, tormenting people. These are demonic, but they are also at the same time, they are physical representations of something. So I think this is a whole area that is perhaps underexplored and underdeveloped, unless perhaps you have some insight. Am I far off base here?
No, I think that's what we have to do. I mean, when we theorize as far as aliens and do they exist, what are they? There's so much. It's interesting conversation to have, because someone Jonathan posted in the chat, and that's true. I'm sure you're familiar with the movie and the book Fire in the Sky.
Yeah,
Travis Walton. Now, what are your? Well, I would love to know, what are your thoughts on that particular case? Do you think, in fact, he was abducted? Do you think that what he experienced and said he experienced? Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that he had an experience. What exactly that was, I can't say, but I know how it manifested itself to him.
Mm-hmm.
So the human mind is a strange and wonderfully complex supercomputer. And the forces of evil know how to manipulate it. They know how to twist things around. So I have no doubt in my mind that the young man perceives that he was in a spaceship and being worked on by these strange beings, and then put back, and then for what reason, for what purpose. And so I think we have to look at what is the message of these beings. There's an organization, I think it's called Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. I don't know a great deal about them, but these are men. I know that one of them used to be involved with MUFON, who have, well, I'll call it a ministry. They say that they have collected hundreds of instances where people who have found themselves in an abduction situation invoke the name of Jesus Christ and say, in the name of Jesus, leave me alone. And the event stops immediately.
I've heard that too.
And I think that I mean, you're far more experienced in demonology and so forth than I am. But I think that's the power of the name of Jesus to change the behavior of the beings is a very clear indication of what they're up to.
So let's kind of switch this a little bit. And for those folks who are just joining, we're speaking to our guest, Dan Carlson, who's the author of 2 books, which you definitely need to pick it up. So we'll be on probably another 10 or 15 minutes with Dan. The books are called Species Unknown. And of course, the other book, you can purchase both of these books, by the way, at Amazon. It's Species Unleashed. And so you can head on over to Amazon and pick those up. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit from UAPs, UFOs to chapter 5 in your book, that in the Species Unknown. From my understanding, it speaks of native legends, and the Black Hills and Native American tales of the Black Hills. It emphasizes relations with nature spirits and other entities. What are your personal views on, first of all, Sasquatch, Bigfoot? Do you, based on your own research, do you accept that Bigfoot perhaps exists, or do you think that it's a figment of your imagination or misinterpretation, perhaps of a moose or bear, and other nature spirits? Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that? I'm curious in that particular chapter.
So let's unpack that. Let's talk about nature spirits. Let's talk about Bigfoot, and let's talk about some other options that we have here. I do believe that there are undiscovered species that we just don't know about yet. I do certainly believe that people are encountering something in the woods that they can't explain or can't identify. I think that we have to be open-minded about these things. Bishop, do you know about how many new species are discovered every year?
Oh, it's amazing. It's astounding. It is astounding. People think that we have all the knowledge. We don't. We absolutely don't. I think people will be shocked. And
10 to 20,000 new species discovered every year. And yes, many of those are insects, small reptiles, amphibians, whatever. But just recently I read a new species of orca, of whale, has been discovered that we didn't know. And this is not that uncommon to find these new species of larger mammals. People, I think, don't really understand just how dense and inhospitable some of the wild places of Earth still are. When you think of some of the jungles of Indonesia and Southeast Asia, and just how difficult it is to get into them, Central Africa, the Congo, places in there, even places in North America where the forests are so dense. I was up in Alaska once and I wanted to conduct an experiment. I'm a fairly large man, just under 6 feet. At the time was about 250, extremely broad shoulders. And I set up a camera and wanted to see how far I could walk into the brush and not be seen. I went 6 feet and was talking to the camera, and you had no idea that I was there.
Oh, wow.
That's how dense it is. I once read a report by an individual who was looking into the whole Sasquatch thing, and he said that there were places in the Pacific Northwest where you could hide a small herd of elephants and nobody would know that they were there. It's just that dense and that inhospitable. Well, people say, well, how come we never find a body?
Right.
Well, see, I have spent a lot of time out in the wild, hunting, fishing. I have never come across a fox that died of natural causes. I've never come across a mountain lion that's died of natural causes, or a bear, for that matter, that's died of natural causes. So nature has a way of cleaning up her messes very quickly. Mm-hmm. I saw an experiment done once, I believe it was in Alabama, where they took a recently road-killed white-tailed deer and set up cameras around it and put it off in the brush and wanted to see how long it would take until there was no trace of that carcass left. And it was less than 7 days.
Oh, wow.
For an animal that big, you have immediately the bugs and the insects come in and they lay their eggs and they start eating. You have the birds of prey, the scavengers that come in to start eating. You have your smaller mammals that come in, your foxes or your coyotes, things like that won't ignore a free meal. And what they tend to do is they tend to drag the bones off. They tend to take, the pieces here and there. And that's why so oftentimes if you're out in the woods, you might encounter, say, a jawbone and say, okay, that's the jawbone of a deer, or that's the leg of a deer. But you very rarely will encounter a complete skeleton in one place.
And some people actually argue that it's a possibility that if Bigfoot exists, they may be even burying their dead.
Yes. Now, I understand some people think that Bigfoot might be an extraterrestrial being, that there have been correlations of sightings between Bigfoot and UAP. Yeah. Now, that's not to say there isn't the possibility of a Bigfoot-like creature, because when I read those stories, and then I read the stories of just the average person an ape-like animal, the Bigfoots that hang around UAPs, they tend to behave differently. They tend to be more openly hostile. They tend to be.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, no, wait. Now that's so you have found through your research that Bigfoots that pretty much correlate with the UAPs are that the temperament is completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, but at least in the materials that I've read.
Wow.
As far as the others, let's say that there is a large species of ape that walks upright. And when you consider that these are seen on almost every continent except Antarctica, mm-hmm. that there has to be something to that. Yeah. And it's not unusual for a creature whose natural inclination is not to want to be seen, to not be seen. They know how to hide. And if you get back into the woods of some of these places, if you're covered in dark fur, there are so many ways that you could hide, where someone could walk right by you within 5 feet of you and they'd never know you were there. So what's your thing that I've been wondering, and I'm not as well studied on this as some people, is I think that the Sasquatch are able to climb trees. And I think that sometimes they're right above people and they don't know that they're there. We know that species of ape do that.
Let me ask you, what is your theory as far as why? Because a lot of people are asking, what is your theory regarding Bigfoots that are near UAP encounters, if you will? Why do you think there is such a temperament change?
There again, we get back into the demonic. And you know, I don't want to make it sound like I'm looking for a demon under every bush,
Yeah.
but if you want people to keep away from an area, what better way to manifest than a large, strong, smelly, ill-tempered man-beast thing? I think it's a UAP watchdog. Let's put it that way.
That is so interesting. That's because most of the time, from what I read, of course, I don't know many about UAPs and Bigfoot as far as the correlation there, but it seems like Bigfoot just kind of at least most people have told me from their encounters, he just wants to be left alone. But I find that so fascinating that that when it comes to UAPs and the Bigfoot's behavior seems to change with aggressive behavior. It's almost sounds incredibly territorial, especially with the UAP observance in a particular area. So that is interesting.
And there's another area of I would call it the occult here, but let's talk about shape-shifting demons. Mm-hmm. The skinwalkers, they might manifest as a Sasquatch to scare somebody away from something. Demons can take any form they want to, and so what's to say that they couldn't take that form? I've read some cases of UAP interactions with Bigfoot where the Bigfoot seems to be wearing something like a collar or a belt or some a metal object has been observed attached to the creature in some way. And again, that's just something that's been on some reports, and that would indicate that is it a shock collar? What is it there? Is it an insulin pump? I don't know. It's just something that it has on it with the more ill-tempered ones. And maybe that's just to make them mean so they'll keep people out of an area. I don't know. Now, another thing you mentioned, Bishop, is the forest spirits. We really do a disservice to people of old by saying, well, they just weren't smart enough to realize they were superstitious. They're people just like you and me. They know what they know based on what they've seen and heard. And for us to simply take all of these legends and discard them as fancy, I think we do ourselves and them a disservice. I think that they had the intelligence they had. And if they say that they're seeing, say, little forest people who are mischievous and who do something, I got no idea what they're seeing, but I'm not immediately going to say they're crazy or it's made up. I think that as Christians, sometimes we do that to just simply say, that's nothing. And they had to be on peyote or something. Well, just wait a minute. If you've ever been alone in the dark, in the deep woods at night, you hear things, you see things. I've had mountain lions stalk me, and you're out there, and it's just you in the middle of nowhere, and then God has given us this natural ability to sense, and you get that sense that you're being watched, and the hair in the back of your neck stands up, and you don't know what's watching you until you take a good look around. And, in my case, it was, here's a puma, maybe 50 yards away who's giving me a good look. But, once he saw that I saw him, then he takes off. I mean, there's all kinds of things out there in the forests that we might be surprised that are there.
Well, I tell you what, this has been an amazing conversation. We're going to have to definitely bring you back because there's so much. There is so much when you look at this and you break it all down with UAPs, with Bigfoot, with nature, species, animals, spirits. There's a lot. There is a lot here. So again, for those of you who are just tuning in, we're talking to our friend, Dan Carlson. Make sure you pick up his book, Species Unknown. You can purchase them on Amazon. And of course, the other book is Species Unleashed. So definitely do yourself a favor and pick them up. And Dan, we certainly do appreciate you jumping on and chatting with us and giving us your time. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bishop Long. It's been a joy to get to know you a little bit. I wish you the best in your ministry. We didn't even get to talk about demonology tonight.
I know.
But maybe that's another show.
Yeah, it's goes by too fast. Well, we'll disconnect the call, and then I'll send you a little message through Bill later. So thank you, sir, for being with us.
Thank you, Bishop.
All right, thank you.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Well, there we go, folks. I think that was fantastic. I appreciate Dan giving us his time and talking about his experience. I mean, there's a lot to it. And, there's when you're talking about UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, UFOs, that's really the terminology that say now UAPs. It's still kind of weird for me to say that because I always want to say UFOs, there's so much we just simply don't know. And there's a gentleman that I am working on getting him into the show. And he lives as a vampire. And so we'll have to chat with him too. So but Dan, of course, is not a vampire. I mean, his experience in research and writing books and meteorology, pretty fascinating, very, very insightful. So we absolutely appreciate that. And Mr. Producer was able to connect us with him. So, by the way, if you guys ever have someone that you think would be an interesting guest, we would, send me a message there and go to bishopjameslong.com, scroll down to the middle, and you'll see where it says social media links. It's best to send me a message on the book to the face, if you know what I mean, because I can't actually say the name anymore, because if you do on TikTok, you get shadow banned, like I've been shadow banned lately. Because if you mention any other platform, they shadow ban you, which is stupid. But anyway, you get the point. And send me a message if you're like, oh, this person would be a good guest, then we would love to chat with them. I like chatting with people with different perspectives, and different experiences. There's nothing wrong with that. We can chat and book to the faces. Yeah, you know what I mean? So anyway, there's a lot. There's a lot. So anyway, that's we appreciate Dan. Right, Belmondo. Absolutely. Yeah, Jason, I've had the opportunity to meet Jason several times. Busy guy. He's really, really busy. That's the only, same thing with Zach. Zach, I contacted him and said, come on my show. And he did, but that was, 10 years ago. And he is just very, very busy. So we'll see. But there we go. So we appreciate him chatting by. So if you have questions, I'll entertain them regarding demonology. There, of course, can you imagine people were rude? Some people were rude on TikTok. Can you imagine that? When you're in the middle of an interview and someone is asking you a question that does not relate to the actual interview itself, there's a reason why we don't stop everything we're doing to answer that particular question, because we're giving an interview. So imagine, Chip Coffey. I had him on once. Chip was really sick. Chip, he almost lost his life. Chip had an upper respiratory infection, and he was in deep, deep trouble. So he's had to have some time to recover from that. So there we go. So, I can teach on demonology as an exorcist for the church, and as someone who's been doing it for 25 years, I'd be more than happy to teach about. I do actually. I've been doing it now for 20 years, and 2002, 23 years. So, I know, Shauna. I know. I do have a lot of really interesting articles that I want to bring this to your attention. So if you have questions regarding the paranormal, demonology, now is the time to say, hey, I have a question, and we'll be more than happy to ask. I agree. Dan was we appreciate Dan. Yeah. The first sign is oppression. So, first of all, Rocket, I'll answer your question. Is possession few and far between? Yes. I have performed 33 exorcisms in 25 years. I get thousands and thousands of requests every single day. People from all around the world contacting me, asking me to, go to their home because they think they're possessed or something of this nature. Now, so someone is asking about oppression. It really starts with infestation. So you have three stages: demonic infestation, demonic oppression, obsession, and then possession. So you go out, you paranormal investigate, you do something you shouldn't do, such as invite, and now you have an attachment. And of course, you go home, now you have demonic infestation. And then because of that, now you're having oppression issues, meaning it begins to attack your intellect and will. And then once your intellect and will has been eradicated or in a very vulnerable state, a weakened state, then of course possession can take place. Yes, all the exorcisms here that I perform were in the United States. I've never been outside of the country, actually. But listen to this. For those of you who like Adele, I don't even know what song she sings. I have no idea. I wouldn't even know. I don't think I would even know one of her songs. But Adele, Caitlin, that would be what's called, when you're dealing with, are you talking about demonic? So like, if you're talking demonic, yes, a demonic will attack your intellect and will so that possession can take place. But listen to this. If you guys are interested, let me just read this real quick. But like T.K. Randall, Adele's former home is, quote, unsellable because she said it was haunted. Well, sometimes even star power is not enough to sell a house that has a paranormal reputation. So guys, I'm actually reading an article, so I won't be able to answer a question. So Lock House, a sprawling grade 2 listed mansion nestled in the West Sussex countryside, would seem to be an ideal purchase for anyone with deep enough pockets. But it was the words of one of its former inhabitants, the singer Adele, that may have doomed it to being redeveloped due to the difficulties the current owner has experienced trying to find a buyer. Now, for some time now, the world-famous singer-songwriter has hinted that the property is haunted. And during an interview with CBS in 2012, she stated that it was quite scary. It has also ended up featured on lists of celebrity haunted homes. Now, this might seem harmless enough, but now the building has become practically unsellable because nobody seems to want to buy a house that is rumored to be haunted. So, quote, the plan is now to convert the building into 3 separate houses and a cottage. Well, good grief. I mean, you have a house big enough that you're going to separate into 3. See, this is what I'm saying. So you have a house that is big enough that you can separate it and create 3 separate houses and a cottage. Do you really need a house that big? Anyway, Adele purchased the property saying it was haunted, and the applicant has actively tried to selling the property for 14 years, despite the property being consistently marketed by top agents. No offers have been. Well, I wonder how much she's asking. Perhaps maybe no one's buying it because she's asking for an ungodly amount of money for it. When you have a house that you can actually separate into 3 houses, people are probably thinking, well, maybe it's too big of a house. Just saying. I mean, really, good grief. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? No. Look, Bobby Mackey's was an interesting location, but there are other locations that are far more frightening than Bobby Mackey's. Far more frightening. But I mean, Bobby Mackey's was legitimate. I mean, there were some crazy things that were occurring, but no. Okay. Those things. Yes. Yep. Millennial Mom of 3 is asking, have you ever seen where possessed person knows things that others they couldn't know? Yes. Now, when a person is possessed, there are 2 terms that is often associated with demonic possession, and the terms are retrocognition and prognostication. So retrocognition is the ability to know your sins, not because they can read your mind, but because sins fall under what is called ordinary demonic activity. And so therefore, that is why they know your sins, because when you sin, the devil tempts you to do so, or demons tempt you to do so, you fall into it. That's why they're aware of it. That's why we have a sacrament of reconciliation prior to performing an exorcism. So it takes away that ability for retrocognition. The prognostication is the ability to know the future. And so during an exorcism, there's no such thing as a conversation. We actually silence the voice because we do not have any conversation with the demonic. We demand the hour of departure and its name. And that is all we need. And that is all any exorcist should ever be involved with. I mean, anything else is just inappropriate. So there really is no such thing as a conversation with a demonic entity. That really should never occur. Yeah, maybe I should go to the house and bless it. I think that would be a good idea. Yeah, Adele, or whoever owns this house, you can separate into 3 things and 3 homes. Can you imagine? Good grief. I mean, how many homes do you need? That's a lot. I mean, that's just cray. I can't bless you because I'm not where you are. I mean, I can offer a blessing online if that's what you're talking about. So anyway, yeah, that's a little, I mean, I don't know, but okay. So let's get into this here. And I have other articles that I want to share with you guys in just a second. But first, we have to have some chill out music that we always play, right? Okay. No, there are other clergy besides priests that there are Pentecostal preachers and things of this nature, but we got to be careful because sometimes, they perform rituals that they really shouldn't be performing. And when they do that, they can actually cause some serious problems. So I'm trying to find this thing here. Interesting. Yeah. It's being stupid. Okay. Anyway. A streak of bad luck. Well, I don't really give a whole lot of, people talk a lot about bad luck, and they seem to want to, use this as a reason for, bad things happening. Bad things happen. And I'm just never, I don't really get a whole lot into the whole bad luck thing, because then you use this perhaps as a crutch sometimes when bad things happen. It's always bad luck, bad luck, bad luck. And I kind of avoid that. So yeah, you're okay if your house is blessed. Yeah. Thank you for inviting people by the darkness that can affect. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Kendra. Yeah, it's pretty. I have a headache, but I'm doing good. I'm doing all right. Okay. So if you have any questions, feel free to jump in, and I'll try to answer them as much as I possibly can, and go from there. Listen to this. I saw that this was interesting. I don't know about this one, but I think this is going to kind of shock you a little bit. When I read this, I thought, is this true? This is by Joe Ferretra, I believe. Ferretra? Hold on. Just listen. NASA astronauts said that they were harassed by 120-foot aliens with wings who peek into space shuttles. Hold on. A self-proclaimed UFO expert, Chris Bledsoe, has spoken out about the moment that, quote, angelic beings were looking into the space shuttle and smiling at NASA astronauts. So, anyway, an alien lover has described the moment he says NASA astronauts were harassed by 125-foot tall beings with wings who were peeking into a space shuttle. Anyway, self-proclaimed UFO expert Chris Bledsoe was speaking on the Bledsoe Said So podcast, where he said he was sharing his experience with NASA for the first time. And over the course of the interview, he spoke about how it was he who got involved in the U.S.-based space agency. During the discussion, he also revealed that all astronauts had experienced extraterrestrial life during their missions and had been harassed by them. I know a few astronauts, and not all astronauts report this. Anyway, he claimed that he was drafted into the, quote, independent government organization to help them understand what the aliens wanted with them. Bledsoe's experience with aliens as orbs, as he described them, date back in 2007 when he was on the verge of losing everything on the financial crisis and suffering from a debilitating chronic disease. Bledsoe says he had a moment that changed him forever. Anyway, what he says is just simply is not true. It's just simply not true. Not all astronauts have reported seeing 125. Actually, I don't know any astronaut who has reported seeing 125-foot creatures who looked in the space shuttle and smiled. I'm sorry, guys. No. But anyway, I'm not really. Yeah. Some people. It's interesting what people will say. You would think that that people would notice that. Yeah. Perhaps a lack of oxygen, right? Yeah, I think we'll get. We'll ask Willie Windwalker to come back on again because he's always a great guest, and I think that'd be great. This is interesting. Listen to this. I want to know what you guys think about this. I have. Let me just read it to you. This is by Samantha Ibrahim, and just listen to this. Prince Harry contacted Princess Diana through a psychic who, quote, claimed to have powers. Prince Harry has shared an emotional account of contacting his late mother, Princess Diana, through a psychic who allegedly possessed supernatural abilities. In his memoir called Spare, the Duke of Sussex reveals that he sought the assistance of a medium to communicate with his mom, who tragically died in a car accident in 1997, just weeks before his 13th birthday. The Duke was fortunate to receive a message from the late princess through the psychic, who told him he was, quote, living the life she couldn't. The psychic reportedly told the now 40-year-old, says, you're living the life she wanted for you. In his memoir, Harry also alleges that the unnamed woman informed him that his mom was with him right now, causing his neck to warm and his eyes to tear up. She continued saying Diana knew he was looking for clarity and feels your confusion, adding that she understood he had so many questions and that answers would come in time. In another section of the book, Harry recounts being told that his mom's spirit had witnessed his son, Prince Archie, breaking a Christmas tree ornament shaped like the late Queen Elizabeth. The psychic reportedly questioned the Duke about the broken ornament, to which he confessed his son was trying to repair it. The medium then suggested that Diana had found amusement in the incident, and she watched her grandson, whom she never met, reports the Daily Record. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? What intervention do you need? This is I don't know. I'm troubled with this. No, he actually did. I mean, in his memoir, I mean, he talks about this. But see, I know some people who purposely take advantage of people who, for example, who lost a loved one. And they will just, here's what they'll do. They'll say, yeah, I'm talking to your mom now, and they'll give the information. And then they say, she's fading away. She's fading away. We'll have to make another session. Then you make another session. Yeah. And then they give a little snippet. She's fading away. I'm losing the connection. We'll have to make another one. And then before you know it, now you've gotten 10 sessions with this person at $200 a session. And I know quite a few people who do that. And that's problematic. And what bothered me about this psychic talking about this ornament is apparently Harry had forgotten that he had talked about that before in an interview. And so I don't know. I'm just I believe there are people that are gifted, but this doesn't make me feel comfortable when people do that, especially when it comes of a loss of a loved one, because you could so easily take advantage of people, and that's not cool. But I do know people who are gifted. I will say that right now. But that I know a lot of people who do take advantage. This is very strange. Have you seen this on the world news? TK Randall writes this. He says, mysterious help signs are spotted in Los Angeles on Google Earth. So someone has seemingly been writing the word help on the ground. I mean, huge, all over and over again. Says when eagle-eyed Google Earth users shared screenshots on social media showing the word the word help etched into the ground on a vacant lot in Los Angeles recently, the mystery quickly racked up millions of views and left many wondering if someone might be in urgent need of assistance. Yeah, it's crazy. So there wasn't just one help sign on the ground either. There seemed to be dozens of them, all written in different sizes and orientations over quite a sizable area for the ground. For those of you, I wish I could show you guys. I can't show you on TikTok, but I can show everybody here on KGREDB radio and others. Let me show you guys. This is very strange. Let me share the screen here. Take a look at that. And so you can go online, but there's huge. It's help everywhere. It was a homeless guy. And when you have to, this is pretty high up. And, you know, in some of these, like this here, well, in one of them, in this section, I mean, it really is deeply, deeply embedded into the desert, into the ground. So when I saw that, it's everywhere. And that's kind of odd. So you read that it was a homeless person? Oh, they had a psychic block. Wow. So anyway, yeah, this is kind of strange. It says here, although let's see, blah, blah, blah. For those of you who don't know, the enigma prompted calls to the local police who headed to the site to investigate. And upon arrival, officers conducted a thorough investigation and found no evidence of any criminal activity or threat in the area. Although the police maintained that the photographs were from 2023, when local news station KTLA sent a chopper out to take a look, they discovered that the help signs were all still there. Keen to get to the bottom of the mystery, some social media users actually ventured out to investigate the area themselves and discovered that quite a few homeless people were living there. And after speaking to a few of them, they determined that a homeless man named Jose had been writing the signs on the ground for several years. It turned out that the police were quite familiar with him too. It says, we quote, "We've had several different contacts with the individual you speak of. He's refused housing or mental health evaluation." Well, so there we go. A lot of people said it was maybe something else going on there, you know, dealing with human, can't say that on here. So yeah, it's kind of strange, isn't it? But I don't know. There is a, I want to share this with you guys. No. There are so many articles that I want to share with you. This is really strange as well. The scariest thing that ever happened to me, well, I would certainly say the first exorcism that I did was frightening. I did a video on that on TikTok because I wasn't really prepared to experience. Well, of course, the first exorcism is always something you remember, but when the eyes of the person went completely solid black. And I had always read about it. I'd always read about that could happen. But until you see it, there really is no way to explain, because your brain is trying to make sense of this. You know, it's trying to make sense of, what am I seeing? And I had always read in cases that this can occur. And so when I lifted the eyelids of the individual, I was expecting to see a dull black, a solid black. That's what I was expecting. It was not that at all. It actually was, it was like a mirror. I could see my reflection. And so I remember, as a matter of fact, that's one of the cases when on the show, the show that I'm on as a cast member, Eli Roth presents Legion of Exorcist show that's on HBO Max and Travel Channel. And I think when I saw that, I was not, that took me back. Because I couldn't move, I couldn't talk. I was completely catatonic. And I could see my reflection. But it was just, to me, it looked like an abyss. There was nothing there. And so I just didn't like the feeling of the vulnerability. That's what I did not like. I have seen a form of levitation, not the levitation that you see in, like in the movie The Exorcist, but I have seen a form of levitation. And I talked about that as well on the show that I'm on. And so she was laying down like this, and it was like someone had tied a rope around her waist and just lifted her up just like that, a V shape. And I heard her vertebrae crack. I thought she had broke her back. And so I was very concerned about that. But yeah, I would say the first, and I would also say my investigation that I did at the Gates of Hell Cemetery. So, and as a matter of fact, I did a documentary on. Listen, it's not a matter of supporting people. I just don't like bullies. I don't like people bothering or harassing people. Period. If you don't like somebody, move on. That's what I believe. If you don't like someone, move on. Just scroll on. Harassing people, I don't understand that. Even if you don't like them, there are plenty of people online that I don't like, and because they talk about, they're just really kind of rude to their guest. But I just move on. I just scroll on. You know, that's what adults do. But yes, I would say the Gates of Hell Cemetery was probably the ones, for those of you who don't know. So the gates, about 20 years ago, a family had contacted me and asked me if I would go to the cemetery. It's an old abandoned cemetery. They had family members, you know, grandmothers and great grandmothers. It's an old abandoned cemetery. It's no longer being used. But people go there and they do things that they should not do, obviously. And right, Gina. And so they asked me if I would go and bless the ground. So I said, sure. Because they said there was a lot of satanic rituals that were performed there. So when we went there, here's what happened. Hang tight with the questions because I'm telling the story. So there's one way in, there's one way out. It's an old path, and there's a of course people can't behave, just can't behave like a nice person. So there's a fence. I don't know why people can't just behave. It's so difficult for people, isn't it? Stupid. But anyway, there's a fence around the cemetery. And in the very, very back, they call this the witch's tree. And so we were back there, and it was in the middle of summer. And it was at night, and the crickets were going, and we heard, and then the wind started blowing the top of the trees, but there was no wind where we were. We couldn't feel any wind, but we saw the trees just going back and forth, and there was like hundreds of shadow people that we would just see dart behind the trees. Originally, it started like maybe 10 shadow people, and we thought it was the locals trying to scare us. And this was around midnight, and they kept darting behind the trees, and then it got to 15, then 20, and then 50, and it looked like they were trying to close us in, and we were like, it's time to go. The jury is really out on shadow people. I've had cases where shadow people is absolutely demonic, and I've had other cases where shadow people were not. And so we decided it was time to leave because we were not there. We were there to investigate, find out if there's any evidence of anything occurring. And so we decided to leave. We went to the front, and there is a tree, a big tree right in the front of the cemetery. And our backs were towards the cemetery, and one of the investigators had his flashlight shining on the tree, and we heard the flashlight rattling because this was the old days, like, you know, had batteries, you know, the batteries inside the flashlight. And we heard the rattling, and we turned and we looked to and he was shaking. And his eyes were huge. He was terrified. And we all turned around and we saw this tree. I don't know what it is. I've said it before. I don't know what it is. I can't define it. Every one of us saw this massive, it looked like a 10-foot creature. And it had and the moon, it was a full moon shining right behind, so we could clearly see it. To me, it looked like a huge bat. It had a long torso. The face of course, the bat. The eyes were like a fluorescent red. The wings were spread out. I mean, it went from tree to tree to the whole entire tree, and it was looking right at us. It didn't utter no sound. He was shining the light right on the sucker. We saw that. We saw this thing. So I mean, the flashlight was right there. And to this day, we don't know. I don't know what it was, but we knew that it didn't make any noise. But we knew that if we had went an inch closer, then we were going to be in trouble. And so we both, all of us, said it's time to leave now. So we slowly backed away, and we got in our car and we left. To this day, I don't know what I don't know what that was. And then when I finally got home, I guess it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. At that time, I had a little dog named Kylie. And no, this was one of those things. This was a different experience than a demonic. I know the experience of a demonic. I know what it feels like to be in the presence of a demon. This was something different. I don't identify this as a demon. There's something. I don't know. I don't know. I can't define it. I don't know what it was. But when I got home with Kylie, she was an older dog, and I took her out in the front. And there's bushes across the street there and a large open field. And as she was doing her business, this was around 1 o'clock in the morning, that same night, I heard a growl. I'll never forget it. It was the deepest growl I have ever heard in my life. It was like someone had put a bass speaker on the back. I've said this a million times, on my back, and turned the bass up. I could feel the growl in the chambers of my chest. And it was, and Kylie just froze. And the growl was so deep. If you've ever heard of a lion, much deeper than a lion. I mean, it was deep. And I grabbed Kylie, I said, no, we're going in. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that thing was. And in Russian folklore, we call it cemetery guard. Well, yeah, I mean, so we went on online radio. On online radio was in its infancy days. And I remember we went on the next day after investigation, and I said, this place is like the gates of hell. And that's how it got its name. In Kentucky, in the Gates of Hell Cemetery. Oh, it was over 20 years, actually, 23 years maybe. Because no one even knew that place even existed back 23 years ago in the paranormal community. It's an old abandoned cemetery. Yeah, well, see, I tell you what, that thing, I don't know what it was. You know what, demons, possession, you understand these are parlor tricks. Kentucky. But this thing, I don't know what it was. I don't know. It's an E-town. It was fluorescent. It was like a really bright fluorescent red eyes looking right at us. And like I said, the flashlight was right on this sucker. We saw it. Bishop David Price was there with us. We all saw this thing. And I can't define it. Yeah, it did. The wings were actually spread out. The wings, the wingspan was so large, it went from one end to the tree to the other. I mean, it took up the whole entire tree. In the documentary, I did a documentary on this. And you can go to my go to bishopjameslong.com, click down on social media links on the tube to the U. Isn't it stupid that I have to do that? Because if you, so dumb. But anyway, you get the point. And just go there and you can watch the Gates of Hell Cemetery. It's a little documentary. Dog Man, I've never seen it. So, but I don't know what this was. Perhaps an elemental. I don't know. There's a lot of theories as to what this sucker was. What it was, I don't know. I just simply don't know. Now, for those of you who are listening to this in podcast, we're going to say goodnight to you guys. So I want to remind everybody that all of the presentations are podcasted. So you're more than welcome to go to the podcast and check it out. There we go. Well, make sure I do this right. Now, tomorrow we're going to be here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to stick with TikTok for a little bit longer tonight. But tomorrow we're here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Open Mic Night. And so Judy Ann will bring with us. We'll chat for a little while. And then we bring the moderators on afterwards. So that's tomorrow night. Sunday is Bible study, so you're welcome to join us. Later on tonight, we have night prayer. And of course, we'd love for you to join us for night prayer tonight. We start at 9:50, so about an hour from now, we will open the chat for everybody. And then we close chat at 10 o'clock because we're engaged in prayer. And then I stay with TikTok for a little bit longer after that. But we do so hang tight, TikTok, because I have to say good night to my friends there on KGRADB radio, etc. Remember, my friends, I always tell you your value does not decrease based on someone's inability or refusal to see your worth. You're priceless, and don't let any troll tell you otherwise. So KGRADB radio and the rest of you fine social media friends, good night.